Hello, everyone. We're glad to have you back. I know people are going to be filtering in, and since they want to keep us on schedule, I'll do my best to not occupy time that is better spent on the West. To introduce myself, my name is Doug Flora. I'm the Executive Medical Director of a healthcare system that wants to be the West, up in outside of Cincinnati, Ohio. We have 5 cancer centers. Every one of my directors for the last 8 or 10 years has heard again and again about this place that you guys have built and that we're here to talk about and honor the history of what you guys have done. I can't tell you the number of times as I try and speak to my teams, I say, listen, they did this at the West, we can do this too, as we all aspire to be this community academic hybrid that didn't exist before you guys started to figure out that community doctors can do some exceptional research, and some of that is due to the people that are sitting here today. So we're glad to have you talking about something that's not related to a drug that ends in MAB or AMIB or something for 20 minutes, because I probably couldn't pronounce them. When we started having these conferences here 10 years ago, I didn't need to wear glasses, and my beard was not as white as it is now. So you guys have been doing this for a while. So I'm glad to be here. I wanted to come last year, and I did not get here. This has been an exciting time for me to meet many of my professional idols, including Dr. Schwartzberg. So I brought you something. You don't know this, and I'll get to the real questions. So Dr. Schwartzberg is 90% of the reason I have my job. Oh. He doesn't know this, and so I'm going to embarrass him a little bit. I was a community guy who lived in a city that didn't have a great NCI designate or a good academic center. Cincinnati is the largest city in the country that doesn't have an NCI program. And when I was coming out of fellowship in 2005, you were making your bones starting Community Oncology, the journal, doing community research when that's what my brother and I do. He runs our research institute, and we now have 50 patients on phase 1 trials because you inspired me to build a research program hundreds of miles away. Because I wanted to be Dr. Schwartzberg Jr., I did a cold call to a publisher in Manhattan with a crazy idea of a community oncologist starting a journal, and I have a journal that exists because you told me I could do that. So I brought you a copy today. Yeah. You guys, I'm going to get to the questions. This is about this. I just want the people who are at the West to understand what you mean to the rest of us in community oncology, who care about research, who care about cutting edge medicine, who care about molecular medicine. We have really smart people out here, right? And you're doing impressive stuff that everybody in the rest of the country wants to be when we grow up. So, all right, on to it. So we're here to honor a couple of things. One is, I think I would be remiss if I didn't remind all of you that have checkbooks or credit cards that there is this so-called foundation in Dr. Schwartzberg's name that is trying to build a sizable endowment to support research, honoring his pioneering contributions that I've just spoken about. There is a desk out to the right. I would encourage anybody who has the means and wants to honor Dr. Schwartzberg's contributions to all of us to consider helping grow that endowment so that we can make sure that innovation in community centers continue. So let's move back in history. We're going to go past, present, future, and I think we will start with Dr. Schwartzberg. Back in the day, back when we were using slide rules to calculate carboplatin area under the curve, I think there are probably 4 of us that are old enough to remember doing that before computers. This center was founded on the belief that private centers could deliver really high-class, world-class care in a community setting, which is where the patients were. Going back, you had to make some big bets because this was novel then. It's now, a lot of us are emulating it. Tell us about some of the bold moves that you had to make that maybe kept you awake at night that you felt were necessary, but helped contribute to having these people here 10 years later in this conference.
Yeah, well, thank you. First of all, I'm overwhelmed with telling me about this. This is really great.
You haven't read it yet.
That's true. So I think I was here last year and I went through kind of a whole history, so I won't redo that. But I do want to say that the philosophy of West from the very beginning, when Bill West, Kurt Tower, and I really started it, was we wanted to advance cancer care in a community setting and do it in a way that in those days, in the mid-1980s, when we really first all started, I came in 87, the practice started in 79 by Bill West, who really remains a visionary in terms of thinking outside the box and never saying no. And Kurt came in 85, we trained together at Sloan Kettering, and I always just, when I told John Mendelsohn, who was in his first year as chairman of medicine, that I wasn't staying at Sloan Kettering, I was going to Memphis, Tennessee, he looked at me like I had 3 heads and said, that's a bad move. But it really turned out to be an amazing move, and I'm so glad that I was a part of what we could build here. and continue to build. So it's been really exciting. We've done a lot of things, and in the 90s, we started outpatient chemotherapy, high-dose chemotherapy. That was an era before the collaborations between industry and academia and community oncology and academia. It was very siloed. It was just the beginning. There was a lot of heat taken by us about doing that in the outpatient setting, but we really were pioneers, and I think today about CAR T and how it's moved quickly into the outpatient setting, still at academic centers, but we started that over 30 years ago. We developed clinical research in the setting, and that was a big focus for me and all of us. And the idea that we could do these hybrid community centers that could participate in research was something that was really, really has served as a foundation for many practices around the country. And in fact, if there's any problem today, it's that we still don't have enough community oncologists participating in research. We heard in that wonderful lung session about everything that's happened and the changes. When Kurt and I were fellows, and we were debating whether we should even give chemotherapy to lung cancer patients when we were giving platinum doublets or triplets, and it was so toxic and we didn't have good supportive care, and the results were so dismal, and of course everything has changed. We got early, and the last thing I'll just say, we have many things that we could talk about, but this is the 10-year anniversary, and it was 10 years ago that we formally got fully into precision medicine. And I think we're one of the first programs in the country, community programs, that got involved in comprehensive genomic profiling and partnerships with national labs to do that and to do research in that. And that's obviously paid off very profitably for our patients now, 10 years later.
Yeah, definitely one of the best big bets. I think that's a great segue to Greg here. We know most patients are treated in the community. I'm glad for it. I think it's often warmer care, and I know what you guys do in terms of whole person care here. Talk about what it's meant to your community around here to have access to great clinical trials and what that means to their families and their support mechanisms, not having to travel, not having to get on a plane.
Yeah, sure. Thank you for that question. I would say I got here in 2014, and many conversations with Lee trying to convince me that you should come here and not to Colorado, which is where I was about to go, not understanding the level of research that was being done here. But once I did, I understood that I could get what I wanted here, but also the importance of the community. When we got here right before, there was the Avon article that talks about Memphis having the largest mortality disparity between white and black patients in breast cancer, and how that was now a focus of this cancer center that was being built in order to sort of close that gap. I will tell you, we're not number one anymore. We're probably about 8, but we've improved. But bringing clinical trial in the community, one of the other things that we often are not aware of, I think we looked at this sometime, 90 and above % of the drugs that are being approved in oncology was at West in clinical trial at some point. And so we're offering our patients those drugs as early technology before the whole idea of precision medicine. I mean, coming from Stanford we didn't do precision medicine. I remember pushing back on Lee when he says, we're going to do molecular profile on every first-line metastatic patient. And I'm like, aren't we overdoing it? But looking back, I mean, it was just a brilliant, no, it is something that is just a part of what we do, and we have so much data now that we can actually look at, more than any other institution, really good retrospective and even prospective analysis. So offering this to our community and not having to leave to go to a bigger center.
Yeah, I think that's a great segue also for Jason. And I will say we were approached at St. Elizabeth because we do a lot of MRD testing, my brother specifically for melanoma, breast. We have 2 GI specialists. And Natera approached us to be a center of excellence with the West Clinic. Yeah. And that was the one reason we said yes, was a chance to work with you guys, and then a place called Duke. I don't know if you guys have heard of that, but yeah. All right, well, Jason, let's talk a little bit about the molecular medicine, because we do hear what you guys do a lot here. Let's talk about the move into molecular profiling. We've seen it time and time again on the stage today. What's something that you're really, really proud of that you know was a heavy lift that now maybe the rest of us are emulating, but you guys do or did early and especially well?
Well, I guess I'll speak on two different things. One is, like Greg said, when we first started doing molecular profiling on everyone, it was like, what are we going to do with this information? And now when you can look back and you can see every year for the past however many years that we have all this data to mine and to see what kind of correlations and how we treated these patients, it's amazing. I'll have to pivot a little bit since I'm more malignant hematology, and so the molecular tumor boards, I love to be involved with it, but the thing that I'm most working on and that Lee mentioned, that CAR T is mainly at academic centers. So great to say. So we are currently about 2 weeks away from treating our first patient in our outpatient CAR T program here at
Wow.
Cancer Center. So looking at other sites such as like Tennessee Oncology and other big programs where we have these in between academic and kind of community oncology sites where we have all these resources, this is where the patients are. We send the patients away. Sometimes they want to travel, sometimes they don't. And so we have to bring that expertise for kind of managing them well. And many centers are doing outpatient treatment. So we're taking many steps to make sure these patients do well. And I have to say, Lee, from you, as far as building, just this building programs, eliciting change in organizations, figuring out how to make things work. I appreciate all that I learned from you while we were here. So.
God, people like this guy.
I know.
I don't get it. We're going to come back to Lee as we move into the future. I have one more question for Greg that I think is personal to me, and I love that you guys are doing outpatient CAR T. I'm a chief of cancer at our place and had to approve a dose of ATG for an inpatient yesterday, and we lost $800,000 on a single dose because that'll never be reimbursed, and that's the stuff we have to get these tools to the outpatient world, or we have to change the way payers and Medicare approach these things. So that is a heavy lift to get it to the outpatient world, but it's the right thing for the patients and the systems to make it sustainable. Greg, what about your approach to the personal stuff? Can you tell us a personal story about maybe a patient that captures what it means to get care here in Memphis?
Yeah, so, I mean, there are lots of different stories. I would take a story more along the focus on the patient type approach. So we have patients here, for example, who come in, one patient in particular, with triple-negative breast cancer. We know, for those of you who treat triple-negative breast cancer, that we have new therapies that include immunotherapy in the neoadjuvant setting, and a lot of patients do very well. This particular patient, not doing very well, tumors growing. And we're trying to figure out what to do, and we can monitor her with MRD assays. And so her MRD is going up. She herself doesn't have insurance. And so we at West putting everything together to make sure she gets the best care. But now, because she is, her tumor looks like it's getting worse, we're thinking what next to do. So talking to our executive about this is what I think this patient needs to do next. We need to continue following her. We're able to get her into surgery very early, regardless of whether or not she has insurance, and that's one of the things that I really do appreciate about West. And Lee again, we made a decision very early that if you get into West, you get care, we'll find a way to give you care. We're able to get this patient some of the newer therapies by having conversations and interactions and collaborations with pharma to get her a drug early that I'm able to, like we got sacituzumab, for example, early to get her cleared enough so that she could go to surgery. And so those are sort of the the one example of the collaboration that we have with the community, with pharma, and our West decisions that we will continue to treat our patients regardless of their insurance status and not transfer them to another institution that would probably be able to take care of them without insurance, but we would do it ourselves.
It's commendable. We'll take it back to Lee here. When you and Dr. West built this mecca, you're leaving a powerful legacy. And I'm old now, like you. I say that in the kindest possible sense because I can't read without my glasses, and I limped up on stage. This endowment is a game changer for the West, and I wanted to spend a little bit of time on that. What does this endowment allow you guys to do here that wasn't possible before?
I think the endowment is really going to be focused on educating the next generation. And, you know, as I have gotten older, that legacy and succession planning has become really important. And it's something you don't think about when you're early in your career and you're building your career. But the most important thing you can do in terms of a legacy is plan for the next generation. And that's what we're doing here. And we'll be planning both for medical oncology and for the critical need for our nurses, for oncology nurses, for our advanced practice providers as well, because that is the future. And you know, oncology has changed so much in 40 years since I was a fellow, but where we are today with a team-based approach, part out of necessity, is simply are not enough. Our workforce issues are very real and concerning to me. We have to be more creative in the way we deliver care because more people need this care, and it's so much more complex, as we've heard. The big challenge is, I think, also making sure that our teams and the endowment will help to do this in terms of care delivery, which is really critical because the science of care delivery is really important in the future, so that everyone can get what Greg described. And that's probably our greatest legacy, is taking care of every patient and giving them cutting-edge therapy when we can give it at any point, no matter their insurance, their ability to travel, or their understanding of what we're doing. So,
I think you guys have set the bar very high for the rest of us in community research. This is only going to help. I can tell you in my place, I've been privileged to recruit 44 providers in 4 years because we found a lot of high-powered mid-career academics who were disgruntled with how slowly their lives moved in academia, and we could offer them 60 clinical trialists to join us as subspecialists in the thing. And I would not have built that if you guys hadn't shown me that it was conceivable and possible.
Can I make a comment about the foundation?
Yeah.
The endowment. What's important here is, I know you said a West Foundation, but the idea of the endowment is more community, not necessarily West focus. We would like to use all of the data that's at West to have better understanding, but it's not necessarily West projects, correct?
yeah, absolutely, yeah. That's an important distinction.
I know we're coming up on time here. I'd like to leave with, we have two things coming. One, let's talk about if we're sitting here 10 years from now, and it's the 20th anniversary of the Total Health West Oncology Conference. I have to call out Sarah and Total Health because they always do an exceptional job. What are you looking forward to for the next 10 years?
Oh, I'm
looking forward to retirement.
like,
Lee, you and I will play pickleball. I'm about there, yeah.
me too, Lee. But I do think, and Jason, I'll give you a chance to talk. I do think we're moving into an era where we can have more. We talk about precision medicine, but precision personalized medicine. I look forward to the ability to take a patient, sequence their tumor, see them before, and figure out what's the best approach, which best drug for them. I think we're moving, and then AI. The use of AI in medicine, it may sound scary, but I think AI is going to affect not only how we treat patients, but how we practice medicine. And if you're a practice right now, you should be thinking about now how we can institute artificial intelligence, because if you wait 5 years from now, you will be behind. And I think that's one of the things that we're thinking about in West.
Yep, and I feel like as I'm talking to patients now, many of the diseases that at one time they would die from in several years, they're living longer and longer, and my hope is that And I tell them this, that if we can kick the can down the road long enough, maybe we will be coming up with cures in the next 10 years for these diseases so that we won't have to treat them forever. We can just get them to that point. So I still hold out hope for many of our diseases that we can do that.
I think what we're going to see in 10 years is a shift from the great focus and the remarkable progress we've made in treating advanced disease to new tools to detect cancer earlier, possibly interception, and as we're along the pathways, we understand the biology now from pre-malignancy to early malignancy, occult to true clinical cancer, that we'll be able to have tools that will work there. So early detection of cancer, perhaps prevention of cancer, and early intercession, and so that we don't have to deal with as many cancers in the late stage. And I do think in 10 years we'll be there.
I love that you mentioned that AI thing. I've heard of this. That's the journal that I'm going to make Lee read, is about AI, and I'm going to talk on that tomorrow. I'm going to confidently say things that are going to blow your minds, like I think we're going to cure 90% of cancers by 2040.
Interesting.
So come back tomorrow if you weren't planning on it. I'm hilarious. No, all right. Speaking of which, the joke is on me because time is up. I want to bring up Sarah Loudon to close this out as our host with the most, and she'd like to make an announcement as well. So here she comes.
Are you coming all the way up? Okay.
Thank you all, everybody. I can attest that Doug does think he's hilarious. Not that he's hilarious, but that he does think he's hilarious. I just want to say thank you all so much. It's always inspirational to me when people have such a deep commitment to education. Obviously, we're as Total Health. And from the beginning, the West Group has really committed to educating not just people in Memphis, but everywhere, and it's such an inspiring thing. And I really thank them so much for their dedication to what they do. In fact, so much so that I had a quick call with Brad Summer just this last week, and I said, since Lee is here and since Leanne is gonna be promoting the endowment, what do you think if we do something a little bit special? And he said, in 1 second, I love it, do it. So we'd like to gift the endowment $50,000 from this program because we are so committed to what Dr. Schwartzberg is doing, and it shows in really everything that we do. So thank you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And thank you all, the panelists. Thank you all for what you do every day, and thank you all for what you do every day in serving patients with cancer. So we'll continue the program as we go. Thank you.
Thank you.